welcome to Changemaker of the Week. In this episode, we are talking to Stephan Van Kuyk, an artist, art dealer, and art consultant. He lives in Brazil, Switzerland, New Zealand, Argentina, so he's a citizen of the world. And basically, we are talking to him because he's going to share his strategies, how he has helped other artists manage their careers, but most importantly, how he has learned through his own path as an artist to promote himself, to make a name in the artist community throughout the world. So welcome, Stephan. How are you today?
Very well. Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
So as a means of introduction, who are you?
Well, I'm Stephan. As you said, I'm an artist. And I guess I would probably be known best by not asking for permission. And that was very important during my career, initially as an artist, because I didn't wait for people to give me the opportunities that I wanted. I just got them for myself. And that allowed me to create a very independent and entrepreneurial mindset that in the future is now helping me help other artists develop their careers and apply this do-it-yourself kind of mentality to their own work.
What drives you in life?
Probably the idea of not having a real job. You know, the idea of working 9 to 5 for somebody else was always something I was terribly afraid of. I'm not very good with hierarchies or receiving orders from somebody else. So from day one, I knew that I needed to work for myself. I work very well with teams. I work with other people very well, but I do not work with figures of authority well. So I knew that if I wanted to go forward in my life, I needed to do it myself and under my own rules. So the idea that I can do it under my own rules, I think it's what I find most exciting and what drives me out of bed on a daily basis.
And what's the biggest challenge you've ever faced in your life, especially when you're trying to live your life and your professional career on your own terms? People are going to push back. So what was your biggest challenge?
One of the biggest challenges I had until this moment was the exhibition that I put up at the end of last year, Magma. It was just a lot bigger than I was prepared to embark. It was 19 artists, 6 curators, 1,000 people coming, and I only had 2 weeks to organize it. So it was too much on my plate. And if I didn't have the modesty of asking for help from people that are close to me, it for sure wouldn't have gone as well as it went. It went perfect, flawless. But it only went well because I realized that I could not do it alone. And that's one of the main challenges when you're solopreneur, having this idea that you can ask for help. And sometimes you need to stop, look back and say, like, this is too much for me. I need to put a team here to develop this project as well as I want to develop it.
That's awesome. And normally when we talk to people, they all like to portray a perfect image of an entrepreneur or change makers. In this video series, we normally want to show the real side of entrepreneurs and change agents. So what were you afraid of when you were putting that and you were getting closer to that exhibition date?
I was very afraid that people could come and perceive the exhibition as an amateur exhibition, as something that failed in the middle, that something that wasn't thought through. Luckily, we were able to portray it as a professional exhibition. It was very successful, but I was very afraid to not convey the right impression. Especially in the art world, you don't have a lot of opportunities to rework negative impression. So I didn't want to burn my name out there. Luckily, everything went well and the opposite happened.
How do you deal with this? I wouldn't say duality, but you have 3 sides, right? You're an artist, you're an art dealer, and an art consultant. But let's say that normally people see like artists focus on creating stuff and they follow their path, and it feels that art dealers are more into the money and don't care about the art. How do you manage, from a personal perspective, those 2 sides, but also when you're engaging other artists?
What being these 2 characters at the same time allows me is to have a very unique point of view of what the artist does and his needs and his problems, and a very unique side of how an art dealer works and what information, what efforts he needs from the side of the artist. So I am able to help the artist in a very humane way and in a way that they feel comfortable and they don't feel like they're dealing with an overly commercial, soulless salesperson. So I'm really able to humanize the sales process specifically because I know how the other side of the equation works.
Have you received any kind of rejection or negativity from the artists when you approach them? Because you're one of us, but you're trying also to promote and sell art.
I did have some issues with some artists that weren't comfortable in the situation where I was promoting their art, my dealing practice, and my own art at the same time. And I promptly decided not to work with this artist anymore because it's my company at the end of the day. So if I want to promote my artwork in a certain exhibition, I should have the right to do that. It's not always that I do this, but I have a lot of exhibitions where I don't even include my art. I just focus on other artists. Also, I do have my own art practice, and I'm represented by another sort of curators or dealers that are not myself. So my artwork does grow independent on my career as a dealer as well.
So can you tell us a little bit more about this artist don't die poor movement?
Yeah, it's basically this idea of Van Gogh is a very good example, actually. There is this romantic idea that when an artist is poor and struggling, it's more valuable, it's a more interesting, sexy view on the career of an artist. But I can assure you that when the artist has some money in his pocket and some good food in their belly, they are able to produce art more freely without worrying how to pay the bills. So it's basically an effort onto breaking this mindset of the sexy poor artist and letting them know that developing a business mindset for their career is completely acceptable and really would bring benefits on the long term, even in their art careers and the art practice, to have like a strong business plan in mind, a marketing strategy, outreach strategy that will help them on the future, A, make more money, and B, take on bigger and more ambitious projects.
And what's exactly the transformation that you help those artists go through? So let's say before they talk to you and after you help them become a more well-positioned and purpose-driven artist. How does that transformation look like?
I think one of the main issues is communication and storytelling. There's a difference. For example, I always tell my artists to just upload an image into social media and really uploading this image to social media with a description, with size, with the story behind it, and with also the information about purchasing this artwork. The thing is, you cannot leave to the imagination of your client that artwork that you upload to social media is actually for sale. So what I'm to help them do is close up their artwork as a product, transforming these random images that they're placing on social media and transforming that into a vehicle of art sales in the future. Then a lot of other things that artists tend to ignore, just creating an online shop, looking into merchandising, actively looking for opportunities and exhibitions. It's just a mentality mindset that changes what they're doing as art. It's transforming into an art product. And I think that's one of the main challenges for artists, for the artists that I'm working with at the moment.
And you're working mostly with artists in Germany, in Europe, or across the globe?
Well, I lived myself 9 years in Argentina and 15 in Brazil. So the first batch of artists that I started working with were strictly Latin American artists. When I moved here to Germany, I just packed a lot of artwork and brought it here so I could start selling the art here. And once here, I started getting immersed in the art scene, and I was able to start working with local artists. It's interesting because it's Berlin. It's a very cosmopolitan city. So actually, by working in Berlin, you're actually working for artists from all across the globe. But since moving to Europe, I was able to internationalize a lot more my artist pool. So it is a very international scene at the moment.
Earlier on, when I introduced you, I mentioned that you live in Argentina and Brazil, but you also live in Switzerland and New Zealand and now in Europe. So going back to the notion of art and storytelling, how has that global mentality affected you as an artist, but also your artwork?
Yeah, I think one of the main things to have in mind from this global mindset is a lack of a national identity. I realized very early on that borders are kind of just like imaginary lines. Especially since I moved to Europe, I never focused on doing Berlin art scene or Germany art initiatives. I'd have to thank my global background. Other artists might have a little bit more trouble breaking that idea, and they might be focusing on doing local scale when I think from day one, it's very important and possible to go internationally as an artist.
And what about the work you produce?
As an artist is very tropical. It's very colorful, a lot of pineapples, a lot of pink, a lot of tropical plants. It's interesting in two ways, that tropical approach. A, because if I would have to choose, I would identify myself as Latin American, Brazilian. So it's interesting for me as a sale point to overexplore that and brand myself as this ultra Latin American tropical artist. And B, it's a very interesting export product, being able to be the tropical Latin artist and sell this overly tropical artworks in Europe. It really improves on the cool factor. On the branding side, it helps a lot.
Yeah, definitely our lives have a lot of impact on what we do. So what would be an example of one of the biggest transformation or learnings you saw when coaching and consulting with artists?
Movie maker, filmmaker here from Berlin. She had this grand movie cinema mentality where she thought that for making videos, she needed a huge team, infrastructure, equipment. She was thinking only of movies, like groups and 20, 30 people to be able to do projects. And I kind of am helping her change this mentality by challenging her to do one piece of video content a week. If she gets help, if she gets actors, she's doing it with actors and help. If she doesn't get anybody for this week, she's doing it alone. She's doing animation, she's doing black and white videos, she's doing sepia, she's doing pieces with people, pieces with objects. So it's very interesting that she was able to break out from this mold of a grand cinema and now is able to produce on a regular basis content. And at the end result of this, I would say that it's interesting because in the past, she was producing one movie every 9 months when she had the chance to organize an all group. And during these 9 months, nobody heard anything about her. It was like one big project, 9 months, another big project. Now she has a connection with her audience on a weekly basis. Every week, her audience is hearing something new from her. And the result is that she just shows off, gives the impression to be a much more active filmmaker now than she was giving in the past when she only focused on huge projects.
You mentioned, something which is what I call perfectionism. So sometimes we want to do things either on a bigger scale or perfect stage, and we never launch, and we're always trying to find. I believe that's an issue, and especially when it comes to artists. So how do you deal with the artists that you're consulting with to help them take that first leap?
Well, I always try to avoid interfering with the artist and his artwork production. I try to help them a little bit more on the business side or the career side than the production of the art itself. But I think that I can relate to that too. I have artworks that I make in 20 minutes, and I have artworks that have been in my studio for 9 months and I haven't finished it. I think that both formats are valid as long as you don't let your career get paralyzed because of your search for perfection. I think a good way to overcome that is just imposing yourself challenges. Gamify it. Transform everything into a game somehow, and you go around your artist block if you ever find yourself in that position.
So you're going through this journey to help, of course, promote your art, but most importantly, help other artists and equip other artists with tools and advice for them to become, I wouldn't say rich, but at least not poor. So what is it that you're most afraid of on this journey?
I don't want to sound like a Facebook coach guru. I'm like super terrified that my speech, that my storytelling sounds fake and like I was a poor artist, and last year I made $400,322.16, and this is how. Follow my 14-step guidebook. That's something that I'm terrified about sounding like a cheap ass guru. So I really try to make everything that I produce value packed. I always try to make that center point of everything that I'm trying to deliver is value and content. I always try to think, if I hadn't figured this out 5 years ago in my career, what kind of articles would I need right now?
And how do you keep yourself accountable when it comes to achieving your goals?
I think it's a question about taking a step back and look in a third person's point of view, without your eyes as the producer of this content, as a client of this content. Try to look at it from the outside. Put on a fresh pair of eyes and look at what you're doing and analyze that with your initial objectives and your spheres. So if it's somewhere closer to your original objective and far away from your fears, I think you're doing a good job in that sense.
And if you have to give one single advice to an artist, not one that just getting started, but let's say someone has been producing art but has been having a hard time to promote and sell their work, what would be that advice?
Get yourself out there. Just be heard, be seen, speak loud and speak a lot, just be present. If you want to do it offline, go to 10 art exhibitions a week. If you want to do it online, participate in 10 art forums a week. Just you have to get your name out there. If not, you are in the Van Gogh case again. A genius artist that couldn't get his message delivered. And at the end of the day, being a successful artist is a lot more about getting press for your artwork or getting your message out there than the overall quality of your art per se. I always say there are artists that are going to paint way better than you and are going to be completely unknown. And there are going to be artists that paint way worse than you and are going to be 10 times more known than you are. So it's not about the overall technical quality. It's about how well you deliver your message.
Stephan, I want to thank you for your time and all the great advice, and also thank you for continuing to promote and support artists on your journey to become not only richer but also well known and excited about what they do. So thank you so much.
It's a pleasure to be here, and I always try to be an open book as much as possible. So any artist that wants to know anything about their career-wise, any problems they might have, I always incentivize them to just reach out to me. I answer all my emails.